is I'm not a Russian agent, you're a Russian agent, the future of American politics. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about U.S. elections, FBI, intelligence agencies, briefing members of Congress, the White House, and other officials in Washington, D.C. on who Russia prefers to win the 2020 election. The idea is to somehow prevent Russia from interfering in the elections by broadcasting Russia's preference, Moscow's preference, Putin's preference for candidates in the Democratic primary as well as for the general election. I think this is all really, really stupid. This has been going on for 4 years now, since 2016, where we're having the intelligence agencies tell us who Russia prefers to be president, and then we're supposed to make determinations about who to vote for with that context. Who the heck cares who Russia prefers to win the elections? If it's Sanders, if it's Trump, the American people are going to choose, I think, who to vote for in 2020. And Russia's not going to have any impact. In fact, I think that the broadcasting Russia's preference via these stupid assessments and briefings, supposed defensive briefings, is actually creating a basis to weaponize those assessments and briefings for political purposes on the election campaign trail. So let's look at this. The Washington Post made big headlines. Bernie Sanders was briefed by U.S. officials that Russia is trying to help his presidential campaign. Quote, this is February 21. U.S. officials have told Bernie Sanders that Russia is attempting to help his presidential campaign as part of an effort to interfere with the Democratic contest, according to people familiar with the matter. But apparently it's a bipartisan affair too, because in the very same story, the Russians are supposedly trying to help Trump win too. The article refers to, quote, a briefing to lawmakers last week in which senior intelligence official said that Russia wants to see Trump reelected, viewing his administration as more favorable to the Kremlin's interests. So I'd say here we go again. Now the FBI and the Justice Department, or the intelligence agencies, I guess this is a senior intelligence official, they want to make sure that you know that Russia wants Trump to be president. And not some Democratic candidate, although they apparently want Bernie Sanders to be Trump's opponent in 2020 as well. So who's winning the Moscow primary? Maybe that's the question everyone should be asking. And when it comes down to Sanders and Trump in the general election, who does Russia support? I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter, because none of this is real, or it's not important. Sanders and Trump are once again being targeted with the very same allegations from 2016 that Russia prefers their anti-establishment candidacies to the Hillary Clintons or the Joe Bidens or somebody else on the Republican side. If there was a Republican primary, Trump's running unopposed right now. But the point is, I think that the defensive briefing for Sanders's campaign on this question of Russia's preference for them, because whatever, is stupid, but it's being weaponized on the Democratic primary stage and in Sanders's race against Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Mike Bloomberg by broadcasting Moscow's supposed preference for Sanders. This is a way to now smear Sanders, say you're Putin's pick to be the Democratic candidate. And maybe it's because they think Sanders is going to lose or something. I'll tell you what, Sanders would probably do better than either of these candidates, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, or Mike Bloomberg. I think that the reason they're attacking Sanders in this way is because he's winning, and his campaign actually stands a chance. For now, though, it's a campaign talking point, but it become much more than that. In 2016, everyone will recall allegations by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. They paid Christopher Steele, former British spy, to say that Russia was trying to help President Trump win the election. And they had preferences for the Sanders campaign and the primaries as well, that this was all a part of their election interference. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, they are the election interference. So by supporting Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, according to the intelligence agencies, you're helping Russia. You're not choosing your candidate for president. This became the basis for a FISA, full-blown investigation of the Trump campaign. The Obama administration was spying on the Trump campaign, the opposition party, in an election year using FISA warrants. It was court-ordered surveillance. Turned out to be fallacious, though, because when you went ahead and had special counsel Robert Mueller look into it. He found that there was no conspiracy with Russia by the Trump campaign to hack the DNC, John Podesta emails, and put the emails onto WikiLeaks. There was no connections there. And so the whole investigation should have never even really happened, and unfortunately it did. And I think it's it's sad to see, but fortunately now there are calls to reform FISA by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham, U.S. Representative Doug Collins. They want to see FISA reforms coming out of this. And now the Justice Department has gone ahead. They found that the last 2 spying warrants against the Trump circle beginning in 2017. There were 2 that came before Trump took office, and then 2 whilst he was in office. The last 2, they say, were illegally obtained because they lacked probable cause. By then, they knew that Christopher Steele's sources were contradicting him when they were questioned by the FBI. And so what you found out was that the FBI and the Justice Department knew that the allegations against Trump were bunk before he was even sworn into office. They went ahead and got more FISA renewal warrants against Trump than the Trump administration. But it was all based upon phony baloney allegations that Trump was a Russian agent. And a lot of it stems from the DNI report that came in January of 2017 that was published right before President Trump was sworn into office on January 6, 2017, about a week or so before he was sworn into office. Background to assessing Russian activities and intentions in recent U.S. elections, the analytic process, and cyber incident attribution. And what they found was that Russia preferred Trump all along. They were trying to help President Trump to get elected. This was greatly interfering in I think, the peaceful transition of power, because then people were suddenly asking questions. Was Trump a Russian agent? The FBI was investigating whether Trump was a Russian agent. And he had this full-blown investigation where it looked like a coup d'etat. It looked like the intelligence agencies were interfering in the election. Turns out President Trump wasn't even a Russian agent. So they were doing it under false pretenses. It was false allegations. Christopher Steele, he either made this up or his sources made it up, or the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign, they wanted them to have that assessment go to the FBI. After the election, this was weaponized against the Trump transition and the administration. And now American politics have been redefined with new rules where named or unnamed intelligence officials can now come forward with assessments and defensive briefings to say that Trump or Sanders, there would be Russian agencies. But what role should intelligence agencies have engaging Russia's support for candidates and then broadcasting it? The information is not remaining classified. It's being leaked. So these assessments do far more to influence and interfere with our political process than anything Russia's accused of. A negative side effect is that it actually convinces voters that Vladimir Putin's stuffing the ballot box, delegitimizing our elections. If Sanders wins the nomination now, it'll be tainted because of this defensive briefing. And I think intelligence officials are actually bolstering the narrative that Russia is interfering in the elections and it's having an impact. They found out in the last election that they didn't have any impact, that no ballots were changed. So if they're not actually impacting the elections, why are we making such a big deal about it and scaring people? I think that's what's going on here. To be fair, the Washington Post article is correct. This time, the Sanders campaign actually got a defensive briefing from the Justice Department. Unlike in 2016, they didn't give the Trump campaign a defensive briefing when they thought that Russia was trying to infiltrate the campaign or something like that. Turns out that was bunk. But I think when you couple it with the DNI report from January 2017, what a mistake that was. It laid the predicate for this tactic to play out in future election cycles. It's playing now out in this election cycle where people think that Russia prefers Bernie Sanders to be the Democratic nominee. They think that Moscow prefers President Trump to be reelected. Just because of these stupid briefings. And then you have it now then playing out on the flip side. So now to defend itself, the Trump administration is saying, well, they want Bernie to win because the Russians, because that would say that because Bernie wants to cut military spending. And this is a quote from the National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien. He said on CBS Face the Nation, quote, "What I heard from the FBI is that Russia would like Bernie Sanders to win the Democrat nomination and would probably like him to be president, understandably, because he wants to spend money on social programs and probably would take it out of the military. That would make sense." But is it the FBI's job to evaluate the prudence of Bernie Sanders's, spending plan, his budget, or what he wants to do on defense spending? And moreover, is I'm not a Russian agent, you're a Russian agent, a schoolyard taunt, that's become a mainstay in American politics now. Now everyone's going to campaign. They're going to have, maybe they'll have campaign ads that say, Russia supports you, then they support me. Therefore, you should vote for me. It sounds kind of stupid, except intelligence agencies and the FBI really are vetting our candidates for public office in very public view, and these assessments are immediately being weaponized when they are leaked. They become campaign materials. Is this what they really want out of their political process, the American people? The Red Scare wasn't this dumb. At least back then, there really were Soviet agents who were infiltrating the U.S. government, stealing nuclear secrets and stuff like that. Today, it's just phony dossiers and political committees and baseless conjecture on national TV that I don't think has any place in our political process. This is not what American elections are about. This has nothing to do with budget priorities or what types of laws we should pass and enact. This is not keeping America safe, and it's creating conspiracy theories that candidates for office are Russian agents. It's so stupid. And I don't think this serves our democracy well at all. The Justice Department under Attorney General William Barr and U.S. Attorney John Durham, they're doing the right thing, trying to get to the bottom of the 2016 conspiracy theory by the FBI, Justice Department, and intelligence agencies that President Trump and his campaign were Russian agencies. What predicated that investigation? When did they know it was fake? Why did they keep the investigation going after they knew it was fake? I think those are really good questions, and they have to determine if this is how our politics are now going to be operated, or if law enforcement agencies are going to get back to fighting crime, preventing terrorism, and stop giving off the appearance that that they're interfering in political campaigns by chasing Russian phantoms. That's what it looks like here. It looks like Bernie Sanders got this defensive briefing, and then it was leaked to the press to hurt him in the primary. There's another briefing that occurred on Capitol Hill. It was designed to hurt President Trump. So now you've got it working against both political parties. I think this is very, very dangerous. And I'll leave you with the close here. After everything the deep state put President Trump, his associates, and this country through, falsely accusing him of being a Russian agent and ruining people's lives with ludicrous allegations and threatening constitutional government, the peaceful transfer of power. It is disheartening to see this witch hunt continue. This doesn't prevent it from happening again. It guarantees this will always happen in every election. Who cares who the Russians want to win, whether it's Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, or somebody else? It is the American people who will elect the next president of the United States, not Moscow and not the intelligence agencies. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.